Hello and welcome to today's video tutorial, which is on the Bubblegum Pop Beanie. For this tutorial I have made the beanie for a small adult or child. In the description below this video I'm going to add a link to the pattern so you can print it out and you can follow along with me, or you can make modifications so that it matches the size of hat that you would like. For this particular pattern, when we get to the top, I will let you know where you can stop if you would like to have a messy bun beanie instead of a full enclosed beanie. For this project I have my 8-ply yarn. I'm using a Karen cupcake. I've got a 5.5 hook. I'll be doing the child young adult size beanie. I've got stitch markers. If you don't have stitch markers, you can use a safety pin or a paper clip or a piece of yarn or even a bag tie. I've got a darning needle and a scissors as well to finish off my work. Let's begin. The band consists of 58 rows of single crochet. However, single crochets are formed in the back of the stitch, back loop only, so done slightly different to give a ribbed effect. Let's begin. I start with a slip knot. This is how I do my slip knots. Wrapping that around the fingers, holding it back here. Hook goes under the first strand, over the second, pull that through and lift that up. Okay, we need to begin with 9 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And just to show you how you count those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to start by working into the second chain from the hook. 1, 2. I'm just going to go into the top of that chain with a single crochet. First single crochet of the row, so I'm going to add a stitch marker so I know where to end the next row. It's one single crochet, I need to do 8 of them. So top of the next chain, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That is the end of our first row. We chain up, we turn our work, and we're working into that same stitch, the last one of our previous row. This is our chain, so this is that first stitch we need to work into. But instead of working into the top of a single crochet, as we normally would, having that V on top of our hook, we're only working into the back loop. So we're going to ignore this first part here of the stitch and just pick up the back loop. 1, you continue to use stitch markers. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and working into that last stitch, 8. It's the end of row 2. Chain 1, turn our work, and going back working into the back loop only. There's our first one. Continue to use stitch markers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, working into that last stitch, 8, that's row 3. This continues for 58 rows. I'm going to do a few more rows now just to show you how to count them so that it's easier for you to know when you're up to the 58th row. So chain 1, turn our work straight into the back of that first loop, 1, make sure you don't work into the same chain again, making sure you move to the next one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and last chain, the last stitch for the row, 8. It's row 4, chain 1 and turn, back of that stitch only, back loop, 1, with that stitch marker, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and last stitch for the row, 8. That's our 5th row. I'm going to do one more and then show you how to keep track. Chain 1 and turn, back loop only, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and our last stitch, 8. Okay, as you can see, getting a nice ribbing effect on both sides, caused by working into the back loops. Okay, if I show you on this side, doesn't really matter which side you use because you'll be able to work that out pretty quickly, but on this side, here's our first row. We chained along and we single crocheted back. So that's our row 1, row 2, first lot of ridges, row 3, row 4, row 5, and row 6. So to help keep track, if you're looking at this side, so having the tail closest to you, each ridge is 2 rows, 2, 4, 6. I've just completed our 6th row. If you turn it on the other side, so the tail is away from you, again, it still works the same, counting our ridges. Well, this time we need to count our bellies. So 2, 4, 6. So that's how you can keep track of how many rows you've done. Pause the video here, continue on with this pattern, and I will see you when you get to the end of your 58th row. Completing row 58 by working into the back loop only of each stitch and doing a single crochet. And I've checked my work, placing this down. This is my flat surface, so my foundation chain row 1, row 2 is a ridge, so every ridge is an even row. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56, 58, ending on a ridge. If you're not comfortable counting out your work like that, you could always have a tally sheet next to you and mark each row off as you complete them. I'm using Karen Cupcakes with colour change, so I've had one change already in the band. To finish our band off, we need to join our ends together. We're going to do that with a slip stitch. It does not really matter if you want to join it this way or this way. All that you need to do is make sure your ends align. I find it easier to have the last row facing me. So to do this, we're just going to chain one. We're going to work through the top of that last stitch we made, not the chain but the end of our final row, through there, and making sure our band is not twisted, in through the first gap here, which will be under our foundation chain. We're just slip stitching these, so yarn goes straight through both pieces of work and through the loop that's on our hook. Slip stitch again, so through our next stitch, making sure you don't skip any loops on your back piece, so through the next stitch as well, bring that straight through and slip stitch, and we do this all the way across, and we should have 8. I've already done 3, this is my third one here, fourth one, through that first stitch, through that second one, slip stitch it straight through, and they should line up pretty evenly as well. That's number 7, through our last stitch here, and our last stitch on our back piece as well, as you can see there. Slip stitch that through, and that is our band complete. Now that we've finished our band, it's time to work on the main part of our beanie. So to do that, we need to start to work, instead of this way, we need to work perpendicular to that. And we need to pick up 60 stitches around our band. We only did 58 rows. The extra one at the start gives us 59. So it gives us a little bit of grace to find an extra stitch somewhere. What you need to do is look at your work and work out where you're going to pick up your stitches. It's basically 1 stitch per row that we've done. So I'm going to pick up a stitch at the top of each reach. I'm going to go into this space here. So there'll be 2 strands on top of my hook. And I'm going to pick up a stitch at the base of each reach, and I'm going to go in this space here. On this side, I'll only pick up 1 strand, which is fine, I can do that. But if I aim to pick up this additional strand behind, that puts 2 stitches, 2 pieces of yarn, sorry, over my hook, which means a more secure finish. So let's get started. To begin with, we chain 1, and we start right here. So single crochet back into that same space. And if you look, it is a little bit tricky to see where we're going to be going, so I'm going to go onto this side. It's my first single crochet, so I'm going to add a stitch marker so I know where to come back to. And I'm going to start right here, picking up my extra stitch, top of each reach, and bottom part of the reach as well. So what you need to do is make sure you are consistently going into the same places. That'll leave a neat finish on your work. I'm going to recommend pause in the video here, and I will see you when you get closer to the other side and you have your 60 stitches. completing my first row, and I've already picked up 57 stitches, so I've got 3 more to go. 57, 58, 59, and my last one I will pick up here, 60. It's the last single crochet for the round, so I'm going to put a stitch marker in there so I know where my next round starts and ends. To finish off, all I need to do is slip stitch back into the first single crochet of this round. That's row 1 complete. Just show you here. Important thing to do is to make sure that your stitches are evenly spaced, and that will give a consistent finish. That's the end of row 1. For row 2, we need to turn our work, so turn it around, turn it inside out, and we start by chaining 1 and single crochet into that same last stitch. The last stitch is here. You can see that's where we slip stitched into, so don't work into this space, work into this space here. Single crochet. It's the first one of the row, so we should use a stitch marker here so we know when to end our work. It becomes really important with pieces like this to use stitch markers so you know where to work. We've worked into this space here, which was the stitch. We don't work into this. This is our slip stitch. It does not count. We now need to work into this stitch here. And we're going to be doing a bobble stitch. For a bobble stitch, it's like doing a double crochet, except instead of completing it, you keep adding more. So we go yarn over our hook, through our work, yarn over, bring that back, yarn over through the first 2 strands, and we'd go yarn over and through the remaining strands to finish our double crochet, but instead we go yarn over, we go in again, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over on those first 2 strands, bring it through, yarn over, through our work again, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over, through those first 2 strands. I now have 1, 2, 3, 4 strands on my hook, yarn over, through your work again, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through those first 2 strands. I now have 5 strands over my hook. I'm going to go yarn over and bring it through all 5 strands. What I need to do now is chain 1 to close that bobble stitch. In our next stitch we do a single crochet, and then we bobble stitch again. So this is our repeating pattern for the round. Bobble stitch, single crochet all the way around. So I'll show you the bobble stitch again. Yarn over into our next stitch, yarn over, bring that back, yarn over through the first 2 loops on our hook, yarn over through the stitch, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through those first 2 loops, yarn over through our stitch, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the next 2 loops. We do it one more time. Yarn over into our work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through those first 2 loops. Once we have 5, we can do a yarn over through the whole lot, through all of those loops, chain 1 to finish, single crochet into the next stitch, and then we're ready to do a bobble again. Yarn over through our work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the first 2 loops, yarn over through our work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the next 2 loops, yarn over through our work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through those first 2 loops, and last time, yarn over through our work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the first 2 loops, yarn over through all 5 loops, chain 1 to finish, single crochet into the next stitch. If I turn that over just to show you what it's looking like, that's what the bobble stitch looks like. Quite effective. I'll show you the bobble stitch one more time. Yarn over through your work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the first 2 stitches, or first 2 loops on your hook, yarn over through your work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through those first 2 loops, yarn over through your work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the next 2 loops, one more time, yarn over through your work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the first 2 loops, yarn over through all 5 loops on your hook, chain 1 to finish, single crochet into the next stitch. I recommend pausing the video here, continuing on with this pattern all the way around, and I will see you when you get close to the end on this side. Your work should finish with a bobble stitch. Just completing row 2, following the pattern, doing another bobble stitch, this is my 29th bobble stitch for the round, single crochet next, and one more bobble crochet. We started on a single crochet, so we get to finish on a bobble stitch. Chain to finish that off. That is the last stitch of the round, that chain one. That's what finishes our bobble off, so that's the one we need to work into. And to finish this row, I will simply slip stitch back into the first single crochet of the row. And now we're ready for row 3. Just turn that inside out so you can see how those bubbles look. For round 3, we need to begin by turning our work. So we turn our work around and then we turn our band inside out, so that the right side of our project is now facing us. For this round, we're going to be doing half double crochets into every stitch all the way around. So we begin with a chain 1 and then a half double crochet into the base of that chain, which is the stitch that we slip stitched into. So making sure you're going into the stitch, not the slip part. So yarn goes over our hook, hook goes through our work, yarn over again, bring it back, yarn over and through all 3 loops. That's how you complete a half double crochet. For a full double crochet, we would have done a yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops again. This is my first half double crochet for the round, so I'm going to add a stitch marker so I know at the end of the round where to join my work to. This round we're going to be doing half double crochets into the top of each bobble stitch and into the single crochet, which is the stitch in between the bubble stitches. So to find the top of the bubble stitch, there'll be 2 parts. There's this long loop, which is part of the bubble stitch, and a smaller loop, which is the chain that we use to close the stitch. That's the part that we want to be working into. I'm going to take this stitch marker out. So yarn goes over our hook and we're working into that small loop, the chain that we use to close our bubble stitch. Small loop here, not the larger loop next to it. So for the half double crochet, yarn over the hook, hook through our work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over again and through all 3 loops on our hook. We now need to do a half double crochet into the single crochet between those 2 bubble stitches. Half double crochet into there, half double crochet into the top of our next bubble stitch, which is the small chain, not the larger loop. Half double crochet into there, and then we need to do a half double crochet into a single crochet, which is the stitch between our 2 bubble stitches. Half double crochet into the top, that small chain of our next bubble stitch, the small loop. And this is our repeating pattern for the whole round. So after the bubble stitches, you do a half double crochet into the single crochets. I'm going to suggest you pause the video here, continue repeating that all the way around, and I'll see you at the end of this round. Completing row 3 by following the pattern, half double crochets into each stitch. So half double crochet into our single crochet between the 2 bobble stitches, half double crochet into the top chain of the last bubble stitch. That was my last stitch for the round, so I'm going to use a stitch marker to make note of that. And then I just need to slip stitch back into the first stitch of the round, and that concludes row 3. Row 4 involves completing half double crochets into the 3rd loop of each stitch. When you do a half double crochet, you end up with your 2 loops on top. This is known as the front loop. This one here is known as the back loop. If you keep turning your work over, you'll see that the half double crochet stitch gives you a 3rd loop behind your work. So if you can see that, front loop, back loop, 3rd loop, which is behind. So what we're going to be doing this row is doing half double crochets into that 3rd loop. So to begin, we chain 1, yarn over our hook. We're working into this stitch here, so we want to turn it around. Here's our front loop, our back loop, turn it around, find that 3rd loop. That's the one we want to work into. Half double crochet into there, bring that through all 3 loops. This is our first stitch of the row, so we're going to use a stitch marker here. And I'm just going to reiterate why I encourage using stitch markers. This is our last stitch of the row, this is our first stitch of the row. In between we have our slip stitch and we have our chain 1. We don't work into these parts of our project, we only work into the stitches that count in each row. So it's a good practice to use stitch markers so you don't get confused and accidentally work into these parts here. Let's continue. We're doing half double crochets into the 3rd loop. So my yarn is over, I'm going to turn my work over and I want to go into here, this 3rd part of the stitch. And we're going to keep doing our half double crochets into that 3rd loop, which is behind our project, all the way around this round. So I encourage you now to pause the video here and continue doing half double crochets all the way around, and I will see you when you're close to the end of this round. Completing row 4 with my last few half double crochets into the 3rd loop of these stitches. I used a stitch marker to mark the final stitch. So here's my last stitch for the round, and because it is the last stitch I'm going to put that stitch marker right back in, and then I'm going to slip stitch into our first stitch of the round. That completes row 4. I'm going to show you what effect that has. So working into the 3rd loop pushes our row forward, which gives us a nice horizontal line across our work. Quite an effective way of creating a bit of texture. Row 5 is the same as row 4, half double crochets into the 3rd loop of each stitch. So to begin, we chain 1, and then we wrap our yarn over. We're working into this stitch here, but we need to turn it over so we can find our 3rd loop. There it is there. So turning that over, working into the 3rd loop behind. This is my first stitch for the row, so I'm going to add a stitch marker here. continuing on with our half double crochets into the third loop all the way around this row as well. You can pause the video here, continue with your half double crochets all the way around, and I will see you when you get closer to the end of this row. Finishing off row 5 with my last few half double crochets into the third loop, which is the loop at the back of our project. This is the final stitch of the row. So I'll take the stitch marker out and then I shall put it straight back in. And to complete row 5, we just need to slip stitch back into the first stitch of the row. We now have 2 horizontal lines going around our project. Row 6 involves doing single crochets into the third loop behind. So similar to the previous 2 rows, except instead of doing half double crochets, we'll just be doing single crochets. So we begin with chain 1 and a single crochet behind our work into that third loop. This is my first stitch for the round, so I'm going to pop a stitch marker in there. When we continue this round, working into the third loop with single crochets. You can pause the video here, continue single crocheting into the third loop of each stitch, and I will see you when you get around towards the end of this row. Finishing off row 6 with my last few single crochets into the third loop of each stitch. Coming up to my final stitch right here. I'm going to move the stitch marker up so I know where my new last stitch is, and then all I need to do slip stitch back into the first single crochet of this round, and that completes row 6. Row 7 now, which is a repeat of row 2, which is our bubble stitch row. So to begin with, we chain 1 and we do a single crochet back into that exact same stitch. You can mark this with a stitch marker as it's the first stitch of our round. We're going to be doing a bubble stitch into this next stitch right here. To do that, yarn over into the stitch, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the first 2 loops on the hook, and we do this a total of 4 times. That's 2, that's 3, that's 4, and then all we need to do is put yarn over through all 5 loops and chain 1 to finish our bubble stitch. Single crochet into the next stitch and bubble stitch again, total of 4 times through our work. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 5 loops on our hook, yarn over through all 5 and a chain 1 to finish. Single crochet into our next stitch. Bubble stitch again. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Yarn over through all 5 loops and chain 1 to finish the stitch. single crochet into the next stitch. Continue on with this pattern all the way around, and I will meet you again at the end of this round. Just completing row 7, another bubble stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, pull through all 5 loops, chain to finish, and then single crochet into the next stitch. You can push your little bubbles forward as well if you find they're tucking behind. Okay, this is my last stitch for the row, and I do need to finish on a bubble stitch because I started with a single crochet. Chain to finish that off, and then I can slip this on the last stitch for the row, that's chain, and I finish by slip stitching into our first single crochet for the row, and that's row 7, and my yarn has changed colour yet again. For row 8 we repeat row 3, which is this one here. In fact, we repeat this part of the pattern a total of 3 times for this beanie. Row 3 was just a round of half double crochets. So to do that, we start by chaining 1, and we do a half double crochet back into that exact same stitch. So this space right here. I'm going to mark up with a stitch marker, so that's my first stitch for this round. Previously, when we did this round, we had turned our work. We don't need to turn it anymore, we can keep working with the right side facing us. So we need to work out where the top of our bubble stitch is. Again, looking at the top of it, I've got a larger loop here, which is part of the actual stitch, and then I have a small loop next to it, that's our chain 1 to finish the work. Our next small loop, which is here, is our single crochet. So we're going to do half double crochet into this chain, and then half double crochet into the single crochet between our 2 bubble stitches. So into that chain with a half double crochet, then half double crochet into the single crochet between the 2 bubble stitches. Big loop tells us it's part of the bubble stitch. We want that small loop next to it, which is our chain 1 that we use to finish off the bubble stitch. And half double crochet into the single crochet between the 2 bubble stitches. Show you that one more time. Ignore this big loop, that's part of the bubble stitch. We want to go into the small loop next to it, which is our chain to close the bubble stitch. Half double crochet into there, half double crochet into our single crochet between the bubble stitches. Continue repeating this pattern, half double crochets all the way around, and I'll see you when you get close to the end of this round. Completing row 8 with my last few half double crochets, going into not the larger loop but the smaller loop, the chain on top of this bubble stitch, and a half double crochet into the single crochet between the 2 bubble stitches, and here is my chain that finished off my last bubble stitch for the round. Once I've half double crocheted into there, I just need to slip stitch into my first single crochet of the round, and that completes row 8. And as mentioned earlier, you can gently push through any of your bubbles that have gone to the other side. For rows 9 and 10, we're repeating row 4 back here, which is our half double crochets into the third loop. So to start with, I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to do half double crochet. So I'm working in this stitch here. I need to turn it over and find that third loop which is behind. So half double crochet into the third loop of that stitch. First stitch of the round, I'm going to add my stitch marker here. And I'm going to continue around this row, working half double crochets into the third loop of each stitch. You can pause the video here, continue working your half double crochets into the third loop, and I will see you when you get closer to the end of this round. Coming up to the end of row 9 here, continuing on with the pattern, which is half double crochets into the third loop of each stitch. Just have a few more to go. I've used a stitch marker here so I know this is my last stitch, so I'm going to work into the third loop of that stitch. Then I'm going to lift this stitch marker up to mark my new last stitch of the round, and all I need to do to finish is slip stitch back into the first stitch here. Completes row 9, and as you can see, we've now got a horizontal line across our project by working in the third loop here, pushing that last row forward. Row 10 is the same as our previous row, just half double crochets into the third loop of each stitch. So to begin, we're going to chain one, half double crochet into the back of this stitch here. So if I turn it over, there is my third loop. Half double crochet into there. This is the first stitch of the round, so I'm going to use my stitch marker to mark that. And then I'm going to continue half double crochets into the third loop of each stitch, exactly the same as our previous round. You can pause the video here, continue on with your half double crochets all the way around, and I will see you when you get closer to this end of the round. Completing row 10 with my last few half double crochets into the third loop. Work it into the third loop of that last stitch and moving my stitch marker up. Now all I need to do is slip stitch into the first stitch of this round. That completes round 10. For round 11, we're repeating row 6, which is this one back here, which was just single crochets into the third loop of each stitch. So to begin, we chain one, and then we just turn our work over straight into the third loop of that stitch for a single crochet. This is my first stitch of the round, so I'm going to add a stitch marker, and then just continue working into the third loop only. Single crochets all the way around. You can pause the video here and continue single crocheting all the way around, and I will see you when you get closer to this end. Finishing off row 11 by following the pattern and continuing to do single crochets into the third loop of each stitch. This is my last stitch of the round here. I'm going to undo stitch marker, lift it up, And then all I need to do is slip stitch into our first stitch of the round. And that completes round 11. Up to round 12 now, which is a repeat of round 2, which was our bubble stitch round. So to do that, chain 1, single crochet back into that exact same stitch, first stitch of the round, so add a stitch marker. Then we bubble stitch into our next stitch. So to refresh your memory, yarn goes over the hook, hook goes through our work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the first two loops on our hook. We do that a total of 4 times, so that's 1. Yarn over through our work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the first 2 loops. That's 2. 3 and 4. Now we have 5 loops on our hook, yarn over, take that through all 5 loops and chain 1 to close. Single crochet into our next stitch. If your bubble stitch does go through to the wrong side, as mine has, just gently pop it back through. Bubble stitch again, yarn over the hook, hook goes through our work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over through the first 2 loops, yarn over our hook, through our work, yarn over, bring it back, yarn through the first 2 loops. That's 2, 3 and 4. 5 loops on our hook, yarn over, bring it through all 5 loops and chain 1 to close. Single crochet into our next stitch. And if your bubble pops through, just push it back. You just need to continue on with this pattern all the way around. Pause the video here and I will see you when you get close to the end of this round. Completing row 12 with my last couple of bubble stitches. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Chain to close, single crochet into the next stitch. Can remove my stitch marker for my final bubble stitch of the round. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Close it off with a chain 1 and then we're going to slip stitch back into our first single crochet of the round. And that completes round 12. We're up to row 13 now, which is very similar to row 3 and row 8. We'll be doing half double crochets around the whole row, however we're going to be decreasing as well. So for this round we'll be doing 4 half double crochets and then a half double crochet decrease. So let's begin. To start with, we need to chain 1 and then do a half double crochet into that exact same stitch. This is the first stitch of our round, so we're going to add a stitch marker as well. It's 1 half double crochet. Our next one is in the top of the bubble stitch. Remember we have that big loop which is part of the bubble stitch and we have the little chain on top which we use to close it. That's what we want to work into. So 1, this will be our second half double crochet for the round. 2, our next one is in the single crochet stitch between the 2 bubbles. 3, and our next one is on top of our next bubble, not the giant loop, the smaller one next to it, the chain we used to close it. 4 half double crochets. Now what we're going to do is half double crochet again, but we're going to decrease. So we're going to be going through our single crochet here and the chain at the top of our next bubble stitch. So yarn over through our first stitch, bring that yarn back, yarn over again through the chain on the top of our bubble stitch, yarn over, bring that back, and then we're going to go yarn over and through all of those loops at the same time. Next we're going to be doing our half double crochet into the next single crochet here between the 2 bubble stitches. There we go, yarn over through all 3 loops. So that's 1, yarn over, top of our next bubble, that's 2, yarn over to our next single crochet, that's 3, yarn over into the top of our next bubble stitch, that's 4. So again, now what we need to do is a decrease. So to do that, we're going to be going into our single crochet between the 2 bubble stitches and the chain at the top. So yarn over into that single crochet, bring it back, yarn over to the top of the bubble stitch, yarn over, bring that back, yarn over and through all of those loops. Continue doing this all the way around the round. So half double crochet 4 stitches and then half double crochet 2 together, and I will see you when you get closer to the end of this round. Just completing round 13, I've done a half double crochet in between the bubble stitches, 1 on top of the bubble stitches, so that's 2. This is my 3rd one. 1 more on top here makes for 4. So my next one has to be a decrease. So yarn over into my single crochet, yarn over, and I'm going to go into the top of the chain of the last bubble stitch for the round, yarn over, and then yarn over and through all of those loops. To finish, I just need to slip stitch back into the start of my first row, and before I finish I'm going to add stitch marker back here so I know when my last round finished. And that is the end of row 13. For round 14, just like these previous ones here, we're going to do half double crochets into the 3rd loop. However, we are still going to be decreasing as well. So we will do 3 half double crochets into the 3rd loop, and then the next one will be a decreasing one. So to begin with, we chain 1, then we're going to do a half double crochet into the 3rd loop of this exact same stitch. So yarn goes over the hook, turn your work over into that 3rd loop and complete your half double crochet. That's first one for the round, so I'm going to add a stitch marker here so I know where my round began. We need to do 3 of these. That's 2 and 3, making sure you're working into the 3rd loop. After we've done 3, we're going to be decreasing. Works exactly the same as what we did on our previous row, except maybe a little bit easier this time. Yarn goes over into that first loop, which is the 3rd loop of the stitch, so into that first one, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over again and into our next stitch, the 3rd loop, yarn over, bring that back. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Yarn over, bring that through all 5 loops. So we repeat that pattern. So 3 half double crochets into the third loop, 1, 2, and 3, and we decrease. Yarn over our hook to the next stitch, the third loop, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over our hook again into the third loop of the next stitch, yarn over, bring that back, then yarn over and off through all 5 loops on our hook. So that is the pattern to repeat all the way around this round. Half double crochet into 3 stitches, and then half double crochet third loop only, but decrease the next 2 stitches. You can pause the video here and I will see you at the end of this round. About to complete row 14, I've just done another decrease, and if I look back at my work, you can pick up where the decreases are occurring. 1, 2, 3 stitches, and then you can see a bit of a cluster here, which is a decrease. 1, 2, 3 stitches, and then another cluster, which is a decrease. So that's how I can keep track of it. And if I look forward, I need to do 1, 2, 3 half double crochets, and then my last 2 stitches here are the decrease. And at the end of this round, I will have 40 stitches. 1, 2, and 3, and then I need to decrease into those last 2 stitches. Still working into the third loop, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over into that last stitch, yarn over, bring it back, and yarn over all 5 loops. This is my final stitch of the round, so I'm going to add a stitch marker, and to finish I just slip stitch back into the first stitch of the round. That is the end of round 14. So you can see we are still doing our nice horizontal line pattern, but we are also starting to decrease on the top. Round 15 now is the same as our previous round, however we're going to be doing 2 half double crochets in the third loop and then decreasing. So we begin with the chain 1, half double crochet into the third loop of that very first stitch, add a stitch marker here, exactly the same, half double crochet into the third loop of our next stitch, and then we're going to be decreasing. So yarn over into our third loop of the next stitch, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over and into the third loop of the next stitch, yarn over, bring that back, yarn over through all 5 loops on the hook. Now we're going to do just a half double crochet into the third loop of the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and then another half double crochet into the third loop, decrease. So yarn over to the third loop of the next stitch, yarn over, bring that back, yarn over into the third loop of the next stitch, yarn over, bring that back, yarn over and through all 5 loops. This pattern repeats all the way around this round, so continue doing that, 2 half double crochets and then a decrease, and I will see you at the end of this round. Completing round 15, just done a half double crochet decrease, so I need to do 2 half double crochets to the third loops, 1, 2, and again I can tell that I've accurately done this row because I'm finishing on a decrease. Into the third loop here, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over into the third loop, bring that back, yarn over all the way through. I'm going to put on my stitch marker because it's the end of that round. and then I just join it up with my first stitch of the round. And at the end of this round you should have a total of 30 stitches. So you can go around and check that. And you can see we are decreasing and really forming the shape of our beanie. Round 16 continues exactly the same. We're doing our half double crochets into the third loop. However, we'll be decreasing after each half double crochet. So begin with a chain one, and then half double crochet into the third loop. This is my first stitch of the round, so I'm going to add my stitch marker here, and then it's straight away decrease, yarn over into the third loop, bring that back, yarn over into the third loop of the next stitch, bring that back, yarn over through all 5. Now regular half double crochet to the third loop of the next stitch, and now we decrease again, yarn over into the third loop, yarn over, bring it back, yarn over into the third loop, yarn over, bring that back, yarn over through all 5 loops. Let's do this one more time together. Yarn over, regular half double crochet, and then a decrease again, yarn over to the third loop, yarn over, bring back, yarn over into the third loop, yarn over, bring back, yarn over, pull through all 5 loops. Continue on with this pattern of half double crochet into the third loop, and then a half double crochet into the third loop with a decrease, and I'll see you at the end of this round. Completing round 16, and I have got 1, 2, 3 stitches left, so I know I'm on the right track. I'm going to do my last half double crochet, and then half double crochet with a decrease. To finish off that round, I'm going to move my stitch marker up one, and then all I need to do is slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. Now if you would prefer to make just the messy bun option, you get to stop here. You can cut away your yarn, finish that off with a knot and sew that in, and your messy bun beanie is complete. If you are going to continue on to complete the beanie, then you can do one more round with me. For round 17, our final round, we're going to be decreasing in every stitch. So we chain one, working into the third loop of that stitch, yarn over into the third loop of the next stitch, yarn over, and then yarn over through all 5 loops. So the first stitch of the round, so I'm going to add my stitch marker. Okay, and now we repeat, so decreasing all the way around. Yarn over, third loop of the next stitch, yarn over to the third loop of the next stitch, and through all 5 loops. We continue like this all the way around. Yarn over, third loop of the next stitch, yarn over, third loop of the next stitch, yarn over, through all 5 loops. You can pause the video here, continue decreasing, and I will see you at the end of this round. Just completing round 17 with my last 2 decreases. So working into that stitch and then the next stitch. And then I have 2 stitches left, 1, 2, to decrease together. Back loop of that one, and back loop of that one. Pull them together. All I need to do now to finish off, slip stitch back, the start of that round. Okay, now this is the end of the beanie, but as you can see, still an opening at the top, so we need to grab our darning needle and scissors, and I will show you how to close that. To finish off our beanie, just need to cut a length of yarn, maybe about 20 centimetres or so. Thread that through a darning needle. And then work it through that last stitch you created. Just adds a firmer knot to complete that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go around the top of our beanie. We're going to go into the front of each stitch, just like this. Into the front of each stitch. All the way around. When you get back to the start, if you pull that tightly, you'll draw it all together and close it up just like that. Give that a good tighten, and then back through your beanie. Let's close the top off nicely, and you just need to secure that in. I secure my work by going backwards and forwards a number of times, but I'm just going to work this down through my beanie a little bit. Okay, so one direction, and I'll change direction and work backwards, making sure to go through the back of the stitches, change direction, come forward, and change direction back again. I can cut that off, and with your hat the right way, you can see now the top is nicely closed, and we have our bobble hat beanie. Hope you've enjoyed making this project. I look forward to seeing you again on one of my other projects.